What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at The Green Mile, written and directed by Frank Darabont, based off the Stephen King novel of the same name. I'm not going to waste no time. I'm going to get right into it. I think Green Mile is an absolutely fantastic movie. I do not think it's as good as The Shawshank Redemption, but I do think that this movie is great. I thought Frank Darabont did an absolutely fantastic job at adapting yet another Stephen King novel. Frank Darabont to me is Mr. Stephen King when it comes to Stephen King's dramas because Darabont knows how to adapt these stories and he knows how to adapt them perfectly. And to me, Green Mile is another example of an absolutely fantastic adaptation by Frank Darabont. This movie has an all-star cast that includes Tom Hanks, Michael Clark Duncan, David Morse, Sam Rockwell, Barry Pepper, James Cromwell. This movie is loaded with star power. And Tom Hanks is at the forefront as he plays the lead character named Paul Edgecombe, who is pretty much this prison guard on death row. And they call their little corner of death row the Green Mile because it has a lime-colored floor. Right off the bat, Tom Hanks as Paul Edgecombe is absolutely fantastic in this movie. This is one of, I think, honestly speaking, I think this is one of Tom Hanks' most underappreciated roles because I thought he absolutely kills it as Paul Edgecombe. He brings that every man just presence to every role that he does, and Paul Edgecombe is no excuse. I thought Hanks landed the role absolutely perfectly, and the supporting cast around him all fit the roles well. With Michael Clark Duncan as the character John Coffey being giving an absolutely fantastic, moving, touching performance. And I want to talk about Michael Clark Duncan in this movie as John Coffey. I think that Duncan, like I said, absolutely nailed it as John Coffey. He brought that right amount of just humanity and just sadness to the character. That when you get to the when you get to the end of the movie, and the character of John Coffey, is electrocuted, you feel it because we spend so much time with the Coffey character, and we see the Coffey character and what he can do, and we find out that he's actually a miracle of God because Coffey has the supernatural ability to heal. He heals Hall. He heals Paul, who is suffering from a urinary infection, a bladder infection, pretty much. He heals that. The warden's wife has a brain tumor, and Coffee heals her brain tumor. And we get a sense that, and it's revealed that Coffee was actually being accused of a murder he never committed, as the real killer is actually the character called Wild Bill, played by Sam Rockwell. Like that makes us feel even more for John Coffey, especially when the guards learn the truth. But given that this movie takes place in 1935, during the backdrop of the Great Depression, no one's gonna buy the fact that this man was innocent. To the common folk, he is just this big, imposing, brutal man who's like as big as a mountain, who can kill you with just a single hand strike. When all the while, in actuality, John Coffey is the most mild mannered, respectful human being you'll ever meet. And I really, really like how Frank Darabont is able to capture that in his writing, and Michael Clark Duncan brought that to life with just utter nuance and awesomeness. Michael Clark Duncan, I don't think in his lifetime Duncan really got enough credit for being a very talented actor because the man was good, like really, really good. And the supporting cast in this movie is equally as good. I really liked David Morse and Barry Pepper in their roles as the guards, and I also liked the actor who played the character of Harry. I thought the camaraderie between the four guards is actually really, really good and really, really strong, and you really get the sense that the four of them have been doing this for a very long time, and that the four of them have a very close friendship with one another. And we have plenty of scenes where we get to see them bounce off one another, and you really get the sense of a friendship between them, especially with Paul and Brutal, who were pretty much portrayed more as the two, as being closer to one another. And I thought David Morse as the character of Brutal did a fantastic job as well. I think David Morse gives a very underappreciated performance in this movie. I thought he was great. Sam Rockwell, who plays Wild Bill, who is one of the killers, I thought Sam Rockwell was utterly hilarious in this movie. I thought he had a lot of really funny gems, and I thought he was really goofy and over the top as well. Uh, Doug Hutchinson plays another guard called Percy. Percy is more or less an antagonistic guard. he's kind of like the rookie of the group, but he's trying to like but he's more like aggressive with the inmates. So Paul and his group, their whole thing is that they're very mild mannered and respectful to their prisoners, and they try to give them a sense of comfort when they're being led to their deaths. Percy, on the other hand, he's the exact opposite. He's just a mean son of a bitch, and he's pretty much using the fact that his aunt is in a high position of political power to pretty much think he can get away with anything. And this is really prevalent during the execution of the character Delacroix, played by Michael Jeter, where Percy forgets to wet the sponge and Delacroix has an execution that is just utterly painful and just, oh man, it's really difficult to watch because the Delacroix character, we don't really know exactly the crime he committed, but we got to know the Delacroix character, especially when he gets the mouse Mr. Jingles, and the Delacroix character comes across as really mild mannered. I won't say mild mannered, but very, very eccentric, but also very friendly in a lot of scenes as well. And you can instantly tell that he has regret and remorse for the things that he's done, mainly because he formed a bond with the Mr. Jingles mouse, who is a very special mouse that can do little tricks. And he also starts to form a little bit of a bond with John Coffey and the four guards as well. And when Delacroix is sent to his death and takes a painful execution, you can tell that Paul and his guards, they did not appreciate what Percy did, and the scenes where they pretty much just punish Percy for his actions are really, really funny, and actually really good. And I give Doug Hutchinson a lot of credit. He really did a good job at playing Percy as this over-the-top type of villain who's just flat-out sadistic. Kind of reminds me of Clancy Brown from the Shawshank Redemption, only not to the extent. But I also do like the scene where Coffey kind of gives a little bit of a supernatural essence to the Percy character, and it's actually Percy who while possessed by I guess possessed, shoots and kills Wild Bill, and it kind of leaves Percy in a catatonic state where he goes to a mental institution where there's this like underlying subplot that the guards want him to get transferred to. He ends up getting transferred there, but only as an inmate. So it's good stuff as well. Yeah, and you also have the cast also includes William Sadler, who is the father of the two girls that John Coffey is being accused of killing. I thought the scenes he was in was pretty good. We get the flashback where it's actually revealed that father actually hired Wild Bill to be a painter, not knowing what was going to happen. So I thought that stuff was fine too. I think this movie's big problems out. I think it runs maybe just a little too long. I would have cut at least 20 to 30 minutes out of this movie, and I think would have had a much better flow. I think there are certain moments that kind of drag on just a little too long. Like, I appreciate the fact that they took time to develop these characters, but I also think that there are certain scenes that kind of drag on more than they should. And I would have, tightened up the pacing just a little bit. But I do like how this movie's mostly told through flashback when we see older Paul in a nursing home, and he kind of tells his friend the story of what happened to John Coffey on the Green Mile. And I thought the actor who played older Paul did a really good job as well. I also like the fact that because Paul was forced to kill a gift of God, his penance is to pretty much outlive all his loved ones. So I thought that was also pretty depressing too, and that's Paul, pretty much, that's his penance for doing something for paying the price, so to speak. Even though he didn't want to do it, he had to do it, and he pretty much had John Coffey's blessing to do it because Coffey himself, he just didn't want to live anymore. That was full of pain and full of hurt. And it's a very relatable story because that's what the world today is. It's just full of pain and full of hurt. Everyone's miserable to everybody else. And that's why I think The Green Mile is a very timely story when you look at it from that aspect. Production value of this movie looks utterly fantastic. Excellent cinematography. Frank Darabont's directing is absolutely outstanding, just like it was in The Shawshank Redemption. Aside from pacing issues, this movie is utterly perfect to me. The writing is on point and very, very strong. The acting and the cast are all perfect in their roles. The story is touching and timely, even to this day. The set designs look utterly fantastic. They really capture the 1935 aesthetic. And yeah, no complaints on the acting side nor the technical side. The production value is fantastic. The writing is on point. And this is just one of the better Stephen King adaptations in a long line of Stephen King adaptations. So yeah, There's a lot more to talk about with the Green Mile, but those are just my thoughts. Overall, Green Mile to me gets a solid 9 out of 10. Fix the pacing stuff. This movie's a perfect 10. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Green Mile. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.